It's Wednesday, it's 3 o'clock, my brain is oatmeal. I'm just having one of those days like I woke up feeling like my brain is oatmeal, but I powered through my work this morning and I just finished writing a scene in for the zero draft of Dragon Balloon, and it was the midpoint scene, guys. So I am officially halfway through this zero draft. So as fun as this has been so far, especially the fun in games, I have been having some feelings of doubt surfacing over this book over the last couple days. Not doubt in the story itself or the concept, but the kind of doubt that inevitably for me surfaces at this point in a draft where I don't think I can pull it off. This always happens, so I'm not genuinely panicking about it. I'm certainly not thinking about abandoning the book, but I wanted to talk about it because if you are newer to writing books and you're experiencing that feeling, I want you to know that it's very normal. And I have written, I mean, definitely well over 20, possibly 30 books at this point, if we're counting all the stuff I ghostwrite. And I hit this point every single time without fail. So it's normal, it's okay. In this case, specifically what is getting to me is I was looking at my beat sheet, at the board that I created with the Save the Cat software, and thinking I don't have enough scenes in my fun and game section. I don't have enough scenes in the first half of Act 2. And that's, as I've talked about before, that's always been kind of a problem area for me. I love midpoints. I love midpoint twists specifically. And after I get through kind of the catalyst, I tend to rush to the midpoint and I don't like flesh it out and let the B story come out and weave in as many subplots as I could. Or conversely, sometimes I have the opposite problem and the B story and B story characters completely take over and I like lose the main plot underneath because I fall in love with these side characters. So yeah, I always have some kind of problem with this section of the book. But I'm going through and looking at everything I've written in every card, every zero draft scene that I have, and I'm realizing that really a lot of them, like more than half of them for sure, are actually going to ultimately be 2 or maybe even 3 scenes by the time I really start drafting it. I want to say this again because I think I've mentioned this in the past, but I know everybody kind of interprets the phrase zero draft a little bit differently. For me, this is like a super messy outline synopsis, but it does have some dialogue. It's like a free write ramble of everything I want to see happen in the scene. And sometimes it doesn't even happen in order. Like looking back at a couple of scenes, I had ideas towards the end of writing that scene. And that would kind of like, I didn't go back to the top and rewrite it from the beginning. I just kind of like took a turn, and I don't know if I'm making sense here. It's a ramble. It's literally a ramble. And part of the reason I'm doing this is because it just sounds really appealing and freeing to me right now, because I am not a pantser as much as I want to be. I have learned that about myself the hard way. I just need structure and I love plotting. I genuinely enjoy that part of the process. But with all of the outlines that I write for my ghostwriting clients and for publishers, they have to be very neat and very professionally done. And it just sounded freeing to me to be able to write a super sloppy zero draft instead of thinking of it as an outline. So that's kind of what I'm working with right now. Once I finish this zero draft, I'm all the way through the end of the 3rd act and I have a draft. It's really going to be like a very long and sloppy synopsis, but it will be split into scenes, and then I'm going to do another pass of it, flesh it out even more, and split all of these scenes up into the 2 or 3 actual scenes that I know they're going to need to be. So I think my board is going to change. The way it looks is going to change just a bit. But anyway, that's where all of that stands now. The other thing that's been kind of nagging at me is that, as I've talked about, there are 2 stories going on here. We've got the main story, which is Logan. She is absolutely, unquestionably the main character of this book. And then there's another point of view that doesn't get quite as much page time, and it's going to be more of an omniscient point of view, and it's going to focus on a different set of characters. And of course, at the midpoint, actually, these characters from both sides are going to come together. Now, I've mentioned this before, but the characters in Logan's story, including Logan, are part of a fandom of a thing, and this omniscient part, that's the thing that they are fans of. And I have spent time developing this. I have a synopsis, a pretty detailed-ish synopsis of how this story goes, this separate omniscient story. I know the world because I think I mentioned that in the first video I made about this, but the whole reason I'm calling this project Dragon Balloon, even though that is not going to be the real title at all, is because it is based on a dream I had of a middle grade story about two kids in a balloon made of dragon wings. And although there is no balloon made of dragon wings in this book, I pulled a lot of fantasy world building detail back from when I kind of thought that was going to be a project, and I sort of developed it a little, and that world is in here, in this side of the story. I hope this is all making sense. But here's the thing. I talked about side characters last week and how I wanted to plant a seed for each of my side characters, something that is at the core of what makes them them, to help me flesh them out and develop them and make sure they are a realistic feeling group of people. And the thing I'm kind of starting to run up against now is that now that I'm at the midpoint and we're moving into the second half of Act 2, and these characters are really it's all going to kind of come together, I need to develop these characters more. And I was texting with my friend Lindsay, who I have mentioned lots of times on this channel. She and Allison Cherry and I co-authored The Pros of Cons Together, which is also about fandom, although it is not a fantasy, it is a contemporary. But we were texting about this, and I mentioned to her that I need to develop this side more, both because it's coming into this part of the story now, and also to help me better understand these characters. I didn't realize that I was saying this, but I was essentially saying my fandom characters are more developed, and I've been focusing more on them and their story than the origin, the actual thing that they are a fan of. And Lindsay replied, and she was like, "Oh, it's interesting that you're doing it in that order." And it made me realize that is pretty backwards. I know that sounds kind of duh. I mean, if we're talking about how do you create a fandom of a thing if you don't fully understand the thing, but I guess I thought I understood it well enough that I could develop the fandom. And what my primary concern was like I said, I tend to go on tangents at certain point in drafts. I let other characters take over, and I really, really wanted to make sure that this book that I'm writing is Logan's story first, that she is the character who is carrying this story on her shoulders. And so yeah, it's kind of led to me doing this in sort of reverse-ish order. I don't know. I am actually going to talk to Lindsay on the phone in a couple of hours, which I'm very excited about, because sometimes you just, like, emails and texts are great, but sometimes you really just need to, like, word vomit into someone's ear. And somebody, especially someone who knows writing and fiction and the world of fandom as well as Lindsay does, and who is so brilliant at giving advice, sometimes you just need to get all of that out and work through it and better understand where you are. So I'm hoping that phone call is going to help. I'm very excited. And I think what I need to do until then is go through this fantasy world and really kind of, you know what I need to do? I need to figure out how to pitch it. I need to figure out how to summarize that story in one sentence, just like I would if it was its own book. I have a good one sentence pitch for Dragon Balloon, period. But this is kind of like a story within a story, and I need to be able to pitch that concisely too. And then maybe I can work from there and unravel it and understand it and the characters a little bit better. So I think that's what I'm going to work on for the rest of the day. And I will update you guys on how that call went, either later tonight or maybe tomorrow morning before I edit this vlog. So yeah, we will check back in a little later. Hey guys, so I did get to speak to Lindsay last night and it was so helpful. I didn't finish vlogging afterwards, had to take care of dinner and the dog, and then it was late and I was just too tired to do it. So now it's the next day and I'm picking up my groceries and thought I would just wrap things up real quick. So, not to brag, but my friends are brilliant. Talking to Lindsay, as always, just unlocked so much for me. We mostly talked about archetypes, both in fantasy, but also in fandoms. Like, think, what types of people do you always come across in any fandom? That was like the bulk of what we talked about for my story, but I also just explained to her the fantasy side of this book, like how I would pitch that. Like I talked about earlier, I needed to come up with a pitch for that, and I did, and I'm excited about it. I think it could be it's a book within a book, but I think it could be a book in its own right. I really hope that makes sense. I talked to her about how I was worried about it taking over Logan's story and how I'm really trying to avoid that because it's a problem I've had in the past, and I think I know how to keep it interesting and compelling, but not let it take over that way. And most importantly, now I have a solid cast of characters for the omniscient point of view, the fantasy story. And that's going to help me further develop these characters that are with Logan. And no, they're not here yet. And I am itching to get to work on this. So here's the deal. It is freezing here in Texas. You would never know that I lived in New York for 7 years because I guess the last 2 winters in Texas have spoiled me because it's so mild, but it is freaking freezing today. I can't even drive without my gloves. And we were supposed to get a snow day on Monday. And I am going to kind of rearrange my work schedule and get everything done Sunday that I was going to do on Monday and make my Monday snow day a dragon balloon planning and developing day, and it's gonna be super fun, and I'm just so ready to go. If you are ever having problems with your story, man, get you one of those friends who you can talk it out with, because I cannot emphasize how helpful it is. So okay, yeah, she's keeping an eye out. Our groceries are coming. I hope you guys are having a great writing week, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you on Monday with another video. Bye.